Assignment, Students with Disabilities, Jennifer Jakes. Table of Contents, Pre-Work, Topic, Students with Pre-Work, Students with Disabilities. Pre-Work, my topic, Students with Disabilities. Why? I chose this topic because I am pursuing a teaching license and love working with special education students. I'll be focusing on students with disabilities in a school setting. Aspects of inclusion. The aspect of inclusions of individuals with disabilities I am going to focus on is education. I am going to focus on this because I am pursuing my teaching license. I would like to educate myself more, and I love working with special education students. I want to have the best knowledge of how to give students with disabilities the fairest chance to succeed in education and life. Interview. Who? Bill Keaton. Why? I chose to interview Bill as he has been an educator for many years working with special education students. He is currently a special education teacher specializing in autism, grades 3 to 5. He has also been a general education teacher, assistant principal, special education coordinator, special education supervisor, and a university lecturer. It is currently his 25th year as being an educator. He is certified to teach in the state of Washington and Hawaii. Background knowledge. I worked as an educational assistant for many years and had the privilege to work with many students with disabilities. The most common disability at school I worked with is students on the autism spectrum. Therefore, I've gained a lot of knowledge about kids on the spectrum, such as their sensory needs, their diet preferences, their unique personalities, their need for visual schedules, how they best thrive in a conclusion environment, their need for consistency and breaks, how to best motivate and reward them, and how wide the spectrum is. I also know a little bit about students with ADHD and how they best strive in a classroom, such as providing yoga balls and wobble chairs for them to release energy. Course materials. Inclusion from the perspective of students with disabilities. I chose this article because I was interested to hear the point of view as to how a disabled student feels in an inclusive environment. I've also been curious as to if they feel a sense of belonging, respected, and or accepted. I use this to support the new knowledge I gained from this assignment regarding students with disabilities. Competing visions for educating students with disabilities, inclusion versus full inclusion. I chose this article because I wanted to focus a lot on students on the autism spectrum. I want to learn more about the pros and cons of putting those students in inclusion and full inclusion classrooms. I use this to support the new prior and new knowledge I gained from this assignment in regards to students with disabilities. Inclusive education, students' perspective. Inclusion within an educational environment is meeting the diverse needs of all students, including those with disabilities. Inclusion from the perspective of students with disabilities. I believe that as educators, we need to educate how students with disabilities experience school as we continue to move forward to more inclusive environments for all students, especially those with disabilities. Many students with disabilities have a strong desire to receive a good education. However, due to stereotyping and low teacher expectations, students with disabilities are more likely to complete school without qualifications, be unemployed, and experience a poor life as an adult. Inclusion from the perspective of students with disabilities. Students with disabilities have voiced dissatisfaction in school due to not being challenged, not having friends, being bullied, and being excluded from sports or clubs at school, which has left them unprepared for good quality of life as an adult. Schools are continuing to fail Schools are continuing to fail to provide students with disabilities a fair access to succeed in education in all aspects of life. Many students had to face teachers that had negative attitudes towards them, low expectations, and disrespect. Additionally, many students with disabilities are taught by teacher aides who lack qualification and have limited contact with their regular teachers. Students with disabilities have voiced that working with aides interfere with their privacy and made it difficult to develop friendships. One student voiced that he felt like a science lab rat. More so, students with disabilities have voiced that they want to be able to learn the same as any other student within their class. Many students have faced physical barriers such as poor access to buildings and attitudinal barriers such as verbal bullying. Non disabled students were unlikely to associate with disabled students, which limits students with disabilities' choices and friendships. Regular schools will not become fully inclusive until adults take account of how students with disabilities feel about school and create a strong sense of belonging within their classroom. An environment that is flexible, safe, and challenging for students with disabilities to succeed in all aspects of life. Teachers need to be able to make changes and accept full responsibility of all students, especially those with disabilities. Students with disabilities need to master skills such as self help, communication, reading, math, and making friends. Therefore, they should be able to learn and play alongside their friends without disabilities. However, there are some differences between inclusion and full inclusion. According to Fuchs, 1998, inclusionists believe it is the job of the classroom teachers and special educators to help most children with disabilities learn important skills, knowledge, and self control that will facilitate graduation from high school or even college and will help them get a job. Special instruction will help move students with disabilities closer to independency. According to inclusionists, students with disabilities should not be placed in regular class as they are too large and their needs won't be met academically and socially. Full inclusionists believe that educators are responsible for helping students with disabilities establish friendships and that they need to be placed in regular classrooms full time. They believe by incorporating students with disabilities into regular classrooms, it will help decrease those with disabilities' negative attitudes and reduce stereotypes. More so, friendships and social skill development can occur. Studies have shown that for certain students with disabilities, special education services have promoted better academic performance than regular classrooms, whereas full inclusion environments have better prepared other students with disabilities in areas such as making friendship and communication skills. Decisions as to if students with disabilities will succeed best in full inclusion environment is based on their individual need and disability. Competing visions for educating students with disabilities, inclusion versus full inclusion. My research, meaningful inclusion in early childhood. I chose this resource because I want to learn the benefits of inclusive environments in early childhood education. Additionally, the parents are interviewed in the video, so it would be interesting to see what the perspective is from the parents' point of view. I used this video to compare to what Bill said in his interview. In addition, I chose early childhood education because I'm interested in becoming a licensed elementary school teacher. Students with disabilities, special education categories. I chose this video because it explains the 14 different categories and classifications of special education students. It goes into speaking about specific teaching strategies for each category. This video helped me learn more about other disabilities that I do not know much about. I was able to gain some teaching strategies that I can use for students I teach. I will use this to support my prior and new knowledge of students with disability and compare it to information I learned in the interview. Meaningful inclusion in early childhood. Students with disabilities are incorporated into a regular classroom environment with non disabled students at a young age. Parents of those students with disabilities felt nervous and uncertainty. According to one of the educators, your classroom environment is set up to assure you're meeting the needs of all students within the classroom. More so, another educator stated that it begins with the IEP process, where goals are clearly stated so you can embed special services such as speech and OT into her classroom and establish routines. She believes this is an advantage because we all learn from each other. Parents feel as though their child's skills have improved significantly and they are building true friendships as inclusion helps build awareness to non disabled students about students with disabilities. As educators, we need to be open to every opportunity that we can learn from to best assist with students with disabilities and provide them with the fairest chance to succeed. Students with disabilities special education categories. The 14 categories of students with disabilities the video broke down are autism, deaf blindness, deafness, developmental delay, emotional disturb, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic disability, other health impairment, traumatic brain injury, specific learning disabilities, speech language impairment, and visual impairment. Intellectual disabilities are below average general intelligence. Students have difficulties in comprehension and life functions such as washing hands. They are best taught using concrete examples and with patience. Deaf blindness, a student with both hearing and visual disabilities. Students best learn when teachers use braille, large print text, and sign language. Specific learning is basic psychological processes. Students struggle in academic skill sets like math and writing. Teachers should study their strengths and weaknesses. Deafness is students' inability to comprehend verbal language due to hearing loss. Teachers should have text-to-speech technology. Developmental delayed. Children with developmental delay in cognitive, social, emotional, or adaptive development. Children are given early intervention services such as assistive technology and nutrition services. Other health impairments, limited strength or alertness due to health-related issues, for instance, ADHD, leading to a lack of concentration. Teachers need to provide them an environment in which they can succeed. Emotionally disturbed, students with behavioral problems such as bipolar, anxiety, or depression. They anger easily and withdrawn. Teachers need to establish behavior intervention plan. Speech, language impairment, communication disorder such as stuttering. They have trouble communicating and doing class presentations. Teachers should communicate with speech specialists regularly. Traumatic brain injury is injury to the brain due to physical force. Students have memory and concentration problems. Teachers should modify work and provide student extra time. Orthopedic impairment is impairment on the bones or muscles, such as burn, deformations, and bone abnormalities. Teachers need to arrange rooms so students have clear path. Visual impairment is impairment in vision. These students have difficulty reading and utilizing technologies. Teachers should provide large print books. Multiple disabilities, student with intellectual disabilities and blindness. Teachers need to provide modifications and accommodations plus monitor behavior. Hearing impairment is impairment in hearing. Students have trouble listening to lectures. Vocabulary, teachers should use sign language, note takers, and be animated when teaching, speaking with their hands. And autism is a disability that affects verbal and nonverbal communication plus social interaction. Students want a structured routine. They communicate in their own unique way. Teachers need to give clear direction and provide visual schedule. Evidence. Interview questions. What are the most common types of disabilities students have? How are students with disabilities given a fair access to education? What barriers do students with disabilities face at your school? What are the most common types of disabilities you face when dealing with these students? Describe your experience working with parents of children with disabilities. What are some special accommodations that are set up for these students? What strategies do you use to set up an inclusive environment? Explain the importance of collaboration between teachers, administrators, and other professionals. How do you handle challenging behaviors in the classroom? How do you build relationships with students who have difficulty connecting with others? And what strategies do you use to motivate students with special needs? New learning. New learning. Inclusion. What I learned. Inclusive environments are classrooms that use a variety of instructional format and welcome and support the diverse academic, social, emotional, and communication needs of all students. When inclusion is done well, every student in the classroom benefits. I learned that inclusive environments, teachers meet the needs of the students with disabilities by presenting lessons in different ways and using the universal design for learning framework. For instance, they may provide students different ways to complete assignments, such as speech to text, and use visual aids and manipulatives in math, such as cubes. Additionally, teachers should establish an environment that is safe and a student feels a strong sense of belonging and challenge. More so, teachers should build trust and rapport with their students and make sure all students feel as though they have a voice. New learning. Equity. What I learned. Equity in education is creating an environment that caters to students of all kinds, regardless of the student's background, language, race, disability, gender. All students have the opportunity to get the support they need to achieve their educational goals and be prepared for adulthood. For instance, allowing students with disabilities to learn in a way that best supports their learning style. A good way for educators to assure there is equity within their classroom is for teachers to use universal design for learning, which helps remove barriers to learning. Teachers can look for ways to motivate students, such as making skill building feel like a game, creating opportunities for learners to get up and move around. Additionally, teachers could offer information in many formats, such as audio and video. Last, teachers could offer learners more than one way to interact with material, such as text to speech, Google presentation, or making a video. We must continue to look for ways that best meet the needs of students with disabilities so we're providing them a fair chance to succeed in the classroom and in life. New learning. Access. What I learned. Students with disabilities face many barriers when pursuing their education. Below are some of the most common barriers and difficulties for students with disabilities. Physical. Many schools lack the basic infrastructure to make the school's environment physically accessible for students with disabilities. For instance, schools lack ramps for wheelchairs, elevators, and proper tile for blind students. Students with disabilities face attitudinal barriers at school. For instance, those students who are non disabled have poor and negative attitudes towards students with disabilities. Students with disabilities are often teased and bullied. Communication barriers. Students who are unable to communicate often face communication barriers in schools, such as lack of large print, lack of braille, no captioning for video, and lack of sign language. Social barriers. Students with disabilities are less likely to graduate due to lack of necessary support and or belief. School and educators need to carefully consider the barriers students with disabilities face and create a safe and accessible educational environment for everyone. Inquiry. Now I want to know how I can become more active in advocating for students with disabilities. I would like to become more active in advocating for students with disabilities, especially those at my school. I will look into current programs around Hawaii. I will research up-to-date programs that best assist students with disabilities. I will research up how the other teachers have advocated for students with disabilities. I will ask others who have advocated questions. I will look up videos regarding advocating for students with disabilities. And most of all, I will continue to educate myself. Questions for peers? How would you advocate for students with disabilities? What is your feeling about full inclusion? And what barriers do you think students with disabilities face?